Hey folks, how we doing today? Thanks for joining me. And I'm really excited about this week because this week I'm going to talk about something that is critical to everyone, and it's time. One of those things that we all can't live without, obviously. But once we get into our use of time, it is something that, at least in my experience, I've found that almost everyone is challenged with. And I do quite a bit of coaching, and over the years, I've coached people from all kinds of industries, different positions, high level, introductory leadership, etc. And I would guess, and I haven't done the math on this to know it for sure, but I would guess that the number one thing that people find that they are challenged with is time, their use of time, and setting conditions to maximize what they're doing in their day to day. So I'm going to talk about this from a couple of different perspectives this week, and I'm going to share some lessons and some tools that I have found to be useful in my practice for time. But before I get there, what I wanted to do today was just do a little bit of an introduction of my kind of my relationship with time, what shaped me as a leader for use of time, and then we'll talk about a couple things throughout the week. So what's my experience and my background? Really, it goes back to leadership in combat is where I really began to struggle with time, and maybe struggle isn't exactly the right word. Probably more so, I was conditioned in the manner that I was using time. And what did that look like? For almost a decade, darn near a decade, as a very young leader, I was hopping back and forth between Iraq and Afghanistan, and I was a direct combat leader, and as an officer and in a direct leadership role, what that looks like is you spend so much of your time not in the present, right? So in mission planning, that's where I probably did the majority of condition setting for what my team would actually do on the ground. And so in mission planning, it was always future focused, right? It was always, what could happen, what might happen, what should happen, what are the conditions that we need. And I'd spend just hours and hours poring over those details and poring through, all the things that I could think through to set the absolute best conditions for my folks, because it was life and death, right? Myself and my soldiers would go out in harm's way. And then and so that was kind of one aspect of always being out of the present and always focused on the future. I'd roll over points in my head over and over and over again because it was life and death. And then on the backside, coming back from a mission, yeah, I would start right back into mission planning again. And in mission planning, it was always, what went wrong usually, what went right, kind of write those ones off. What went wrong, second guessing decisions, second guessing the conditions that I'd set, and then I would flip right back into that future mentality. And the only time that I was ever really present was on the battlefield, right? In out on mission. And it was such an amazing feeling of clarity because there was nowhere else to be, nothing else to do except for those exact conditions. It was always in the moment and always present. And it was really really good for me, the whole thing with my use of time, because I developed like this very very intense analytic engine in my brain that was always out into the future, looking for problems, solving problems that had not actually showed up, right? They weren't real. They were just in my head. And checklist mentality, going through things, going over it again. But what I found in my adaption, coming out of combat and out of these combat roles, that I had a very tough time being present because my brain had been conditioned to look out into the future, to look for potential issues, and then checklist of a checklist of a checklist of items. And it took me a good amount of time to rewire my way of thinking from, this future problem solving into actually being present. So I've spent quite a bit of time kind of thinking about this and exploring different things and exploring ways to get that checklist mentality to shut off at the right times. All right, it's still a superpower. I can still use it at times, but getting it to shut off when I'm present and to focus on the things that I'm doing. So that's my intro for time. Be fascinated to hear about your experiences. And tomorrow, I'm going to highlight a really cool study from the 70s that I think is important to how we think about time. All right, folks, see you tomorrow.